Good morning, Rabotai. Welcome to Breakfast in the Class. Breakfast in the Class today is dedicated in loving memory of Nishmat Aryeh Yosef ben Shemuel Yitzchak on his Azkara, sponsored by his son Brian Galom. Also sponsored and dedicated in loving memory of Nishmat Meir ben Avraham Hanulad min Sarah Alav Shalom. We'll always remember his strength, warm character, kind heart, devotion to his family. May his neshama have the highest aliyah and shamayim by his grandchildren Miriam and David Azakashvili. Also dedicated in honor of Yoshua Yitzchak ben Moshe's English birthday, a great husband and amazing father, dedicated by his family in Las Vegas. Breakfast in the Class is dedicated in loving memory of Nishmat Yosef ben Sarah Alav Shalom, by his children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and great-great-grandchildren. Great-great-grandchildren, yeah. May we be able to follow in his footsteps. Also for the Refuah Shlema of Chana Batzim Afeg and Eliyahu Shimon Mazar Fortuné. And the learning of this week is dedicated by the Torah Center Diamond donors, Orly and Yisachar, Avichai, Amit, Alma, and David Hakmun Daniel, in loving memory of Chai Hakmun. The week of Cold Brew is sponsored by David E. Ash in honor of you and your substantial capacity to go today and every day. My friends, let us begin. The Torah tells us that the building of the Mishkan was required to have a aron, this basically, effectively, a big box where they would store the luchot. They would store, according to different opinions in the Gemara, exactly what went in there. But it was called either the luchot, the aron haberit. It was the aron ha'edut. Why is it called the aron ha'edut, the case of edut? Because the luchot were the edut. Those were the testimonies of God. Please only answer amen if you're listening to this live. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol nהיה baro. So it's interesting to notice that the specifications for this aron are highly specific. So it's not just as an example what material to make it out of and now go crazy, but it tells you exactly the size, exactly the height, the width, the length. It tells you the crown that goes on the top of it. It tells you the badim. It tells you the kiruvim on top of the aron, the kaporet, the thick piece of gold that went on top of the aron. However, what is interesting to notice is that while the aron is made out of gold, right? The Torah tells you specifically that the box of the aron was gold on the inside, gold on the outside, and in between the gold box on the inside and the gold box on the outside was another box, a wood box. So effectively, the structure of this aron was built out of atzeh shittim. Shittim wood. Where did this wood come from? Fascinating. So most people say the acacia wood. Where did it come from? It came from Yaakov Avinu. The Yaakov Avinu planted the atzeh shittim, and he told his children, when you leave Mitzrayim and you're going to need to build a Mishkan, here's the atzeh shittim that you'll require in order to be able to build it. However, what's interesting is that actually the shittim wood that Yaakov Avinu planted was only necessary for the walls of the Mishkan. It was not necessary for the wood that was being used for the kelim. Why? Not necessarily our topic, but just I'll throw it out there, is that there's two different ways that atzeh shittim needed to be built. One was atzeh shittim omdim, standing, where the Gemara learns that it had to be derech gilulatam. It had to be used in the way that it grew. So therefore, if it had to grow, it could not have arrived to them through any sort of miraculous intervention. So that condition by the atzeh shittim is only for the walls of the Mishkan. It's not for the atzeh shittim in the kelim. So that wood could have come from any source. It could have come miraculously, like some of the other things that we needed for the Mishkan. It didn't need the wood of Yaakov Avinu. Why Yaakov Avinu's wood was required is a topic for another day, in understanding the nature of the building of the temple. But my friends, be that as it may, what we're coming out with is, however they got that wood, it was required that there was a wood box in the aron. And the question is why? When it comes to the menorah has solid gold. It's one block of gold, miksha achat, banged out, right, in one piece. And there's no wooden substructure underneath the gold to be able to to look at. It's only when it comes to the Aron, not only when it comes to Aron, but it's when it comes to the Aron, we find that it has this wood box inside. And the question, my friends, is why? So I want to share with you something that I think is really powerful. There's an interesting Gemara. The Gemara tells us that the doors of the Beit HaMikdash were made out of copper. The Jewish people didn't have enough money, so they made the doors of the Mikdash out of copper. Eventually, when they made more money, they took out those doors and they replaced them with doors that were made out of gold. All the doors were changed except for one. That door was called Sha'ar Nikanor. That door has a beautiful story attached to it. And why did they change the rest of the doors and not this one? The Gemara answers, because those doors were shining. They were me'irot. The golden doors were shining. Why didn't they change the doors of Nikanor? So the Gemara tells us a fascinating story. There's this fellow, his name is Nikanor. He wants to do something for the Beit HaMikdash. So he carves these ornate copper doors for the temple. He wants to bring it to Beit HaMikdash, but it's very heavy. So the only way he can get it there is by boat. He puts these things on the boat, Gemara tells us, and while the boat is heading towards the port where he's going to bring him to the temple, a storm arose at sea, and the boat is tossing to and fro, and they tell the people on the boat to get rid of extra weight. What do they see the guy we have on the boat? They have these massive, heavy doors that this guy's got on the boat. They take the first door, they throw it in the ocean. They coming to the second door to throw it in the ocean. Nikanor, after spending all this time and effort building something beautiful for the temple, he holds onto the door with all of his might, and he says, if you throw the door in, you're going to have to throw me in too. I'm not sure why that bothered them. Right? Generally, that's not something that our beloved friends are worried about. Lose one more Jew, it's just a win, right? Anyway, they don't throw him in. This storm abates. And the Gemara says, when they arrived at the port, the door that they had thrown out was floating alongside the boat. Now, I don't know if you know anything about water or about copper, but the two of them don't play nice together, right? It was a miracle that happened. And since this miracle happened, they instituted these doors, and when they changed the doors, they changed all the doors except for Sha'ar Nikanor. Why? Says the Gemara, Shayu me'irot, because they were very shiny. That's what the Gemara says. Because these doors were me'irot. They were bright. They shone. Now, I always had a question. If what you're looking for is gold doors, so buy gold doors. If what you're looking for is shining doors, so buy copper doors and polish them just like Nikanor's doors. I think the answer is something magnificent. The commentators at the back of the Gemara oftentimes add a little color to our understanding of the Gemara. Whether it's the Rashash, Rabbi Eliezer Moshe Horowitz, go look in the back, you'll see Yefei Einayim, all these beautiful Sfarim that add extra. I remember one day I was reading the story in the Gemara, and I opened up at the back the Yalkut Biurim. I can't remember now offhand who it was, whether it was the Marat Chiyut. I don't remember exactly who it was. You have to go look at the Gemara, you'll see yourself. And the Gemara brings a magnificent comment. It says on this story, on the comment of the Gemara, and suddenly a storm arose. The comment in the back of the Gemara is le'nasotot, to test him. This wasn't a random storm. It was a storm specifically to see, is this person, is his donation, is it pure? Is it something which is worthy of being affixed to the Beit HaMikdash? And when he was willing to risk his life to hold on to the door, what happened? HaKadosh Baruch Hu made sure that these doors made their way into the Beit HaMikdash. So I asked you a question. They changed all the copper doors for gold doors, and they left this one. Why? Because it was shiny. If you wanted shiny doors, have nechoshet doors and shine them. And the answer is, the me'irot, the shine of the doors of Nicanor, was not a polish. It was not a buffing. They shone because they were done, they were achieved with misirut nefesh. So therefore, even though gold was clearly the better choice, and that's why they went with it for every other door, that one they couldn't change. That one they wouldn't change. Because there was a shine about that mitzvah, about that donation. My friends, I want to share with you something that I think is very powerful. We look at this aron, and we see gold on the outside, gold on the inner side, and in the middle there's this wood box. And it seems like, all I know is if you buy, gold plated instead of gold, you went the cheap way out. This was not something that they needed to do. Moshe Rabbeinu had to tell the Jewish people, stop bringing gold. It's not a money-saving technique. Why was the box inside of the aron made out of atzeh shittim? So I think that there's something really beautiful here. It's true that wood is less impressive than gold. It's true that wood is less expensive than gold. But what the Torah was indicating here is something that I think is so beautiful. When you think of zahav is the quintessential example in the Torah, in the Tanakh, of things that are valuable. Okay, we talk about gold. It's a way of talking about, right? Something being precious, something being perfect, something being beautiful. But my friends, in a way, there's something more beautiful than that gold. The wood inside the aron, which contained the luchot, which contained, according to some, the Torah of Moshe Rabbeinu, the Torah that Moshe wrote. This aron ha'edut, the testimonies of God, the mitzvot, the Torah that God gave us, it can be perfect and be imperfect at the same time. One of the things that gold is, along with being beautiful and gorgeous, is that it's perfect. But it's also unchanging. Gold never changes. From the moment it was discovered in the ground to the moment that it's sitting there on your finger, in your ears, in a chain, on the wall, the gold itself never changes. You can refine the gold. You could remove the impurities. But the gold that was there in the earth is the same gold that's sitting right here, right now. The nature of wood is the exact opposite. That you're taking something that is rotting in the ground, a seed, that is opening up, that is slowly being watered, and eventually, this thing, it's dynamic, it changes, it grows. When a person is looking at themselves, a lot of times, what they're focusing on is the gold inside, or the gold outside. But what they're not noticing, paying attention to, and developing is the wood in the middle. Inside a person's heart, in their midot, in their thoughts, in their emotions, there are things which are growing, which are alive. And my friends, those things which are developing, which are growing, which are not perfect, are an integral part of the creation of the Aron HaEdut. What holds the Sefer Torah? What holds the laws of HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Of course, those things that we're gold at, that we're perfect at, those are very good. But my friends, there's an element of development that requires our attention. And that, my friends, is an integral part of the understanding of the Aron. Now let's try and work out what this concept is of the Atzeh Shittim. We're told something in the Garden of Eden. In Gan Eden, we know that Adam Arishon and Chava, they eat from the tree of knowledge. And what happens when they eat from the tree of knowledge? Everybody knows, right? Suddenly, they have this big problem. What's their problem? Now they're going to die. Solution, very simple. Go eat from the Etz HaChaim. Now the Rishonim already bring down this conundrum. Hold on, let's just analyze. The Etz HaChaim is meant to give you eternal life, right? That's what it says in the Torah. You eat from this tree, you live forever. Okay? The Etz Hadat gives you knowledge of some sort. We're not going to get into what it gives you. God says, don't eat from that tree. You eat that from that tree, you're going to die. Effectively, we have two trees here. The tree of life, and on some level, a tree of death. These are our two trees. Ask the Rishonim already. What's the purpose of the tree of life? If I never ate from the tree of knowledge, I don't need the tree of life. And if I ate from the tree of knowledge, you'd assume that that's why the tree of life is there. So that if you ate from this one, you'd be able to eat from that one. Again, one more time. Adam was going to live forever anyway. The only possibility that he would ever need the Etz HaChaim is if he ate from the Etz HaDat. But as soon as he ate from the Etz HaDat, what does God say? We got to get this guy out. Maybe he'll eat from the Etz HaChaim. That was the whole point. Now the commentators bring about something very interesting. They say, no, Adam HaRishon just needed to get to Shabbat without eating from the tree of knowledge. Then he would have already had, again, very high ideas, al pi Kabbalah, about what he would have got from Shabbat, in which case he would have ate from the tree of knowledge without eating from it. Very, very high ideas, whatever. And then he would have been able to have from the Etz HaChaim. But again, he didn't need the Etz HaChaim. The fascinating thing is that God planted the Etz HaChaim, but not to be eaten from. And the Etz HaChaim that we were chased out of Gan Eden, lest we eat from the Etz HaChaim, actually, ironically, leaves Gan Eden along with us. And it's one of those secrets that hides in plain sight. It's something we say all the time. Etz Chaimi, lama chazikim ba. The Torah is a tree of life for those who hold on to it. That means that there's an Etz HaChaim that came with us into Galut, from Gan Eden into our world. And what is that tree of life? The Torah. Again and again and again you see this idea. Ubacharta b'chaim. We talk about the Torah as if it is life itself. But my friends, that life and its original embodiment was in the Gan Eden as the Etz HaChaim, the tree of life. That is really, my friends, what was going on in the Aron. Fascinating. The pasuk tells us that in Gan Eden there are rivers, and the rivers were there. They were designed lehashkot et hagan, to water Gan Eden. That's what it says. The rivers are, and in trying to figure out what the rivers are, where the rivers are, the pasuk tells you something very interesting. It tells you that the river is where Asher Sham Hazahav, that there is the gold. You know what's in that by this river? The gold is by this river. Now, I read this when I was reading Parashat Terumah, and all of a sudden my mind exploded. Because all of a sudden I realized that this idea, this correlation between gold and wood is not first appearing in the Mishkan, in the Kodesh HaKodashim, but rather is something that was already taken from Gan Eden. That there's gold that feeds wood. The rivers that were heading there that were designed lashkot et hagan. Now, when we read something like this, you think to yourself, I'm not a Kabbalistic student, right? Although it is a pasuk in the Torah, right? So you have to understand it wherever you come from, right? But this doesn't really sound like it relates to me all that much. My friends, I want to share with you something that I think is very powerful. The Chafetz Chaim quotes an interesting pasuk. He says, Ki lekach tov natati lachem, Torati al ta'azovu. I gave you a great lekach. What does lekach mean? Excellent. In modern English, lekach means a lesson. Right? Like you lomed lekach. Okay? However, the Chafetz Chaim translates the word lekach as something that was acquired. Like a business deal. Like, what do we call the act of business? It's called mekach umemkar, the buying and selling. So lekach, right? Lekicha, like we learn many times in the Torah that a person goes and takes something, it refers to the process of acquisition, right? Kicha miste Efron. That's how we learn that a person makes a kinyan by spending money there and by being mekadesh isha. That's called lekicha, to take. Says the Chafetz Chaim, it means lekach tov natati lachem. I gave you a good business, and you know what business I gave you that was good? Torati al ta'azovu. Don't let go of my Torah. Fascinating. Again, we're finding this idea, the confluence of all these pisukim. I gave you a good business, Torati atazovu. Don't let go of my Torah. Now, if you know anything about business, isn't the process of business the process of letting go? You're buying, you're selling. If you're selling the Torah, if that's your business, how could you hold on to it? Unless the Torah is telling you, I gave you a really good thing, don't ever sell it. My friends, that word, Torati al ta'azovu, is just a reflection of the same pasuk. Etz chaim hi la machazikim ba. That means that the blessing of the Etz chaim comes when a person is holding on to it. Torati, which is Etz chaim, al ta'azovu, don't let go of. But then why is it being compared to a business? Says the Chafetz Chaim something unbelievable. He says that when it comes to business, a person understands that you cannot run a successful business without taking inventory. You have to know how many pieces you have in the warehouse. You have to know which items are selling good and which items are not moving at all. You have to know, as an example, how much your overhead is. You need to know what your cash flow is. You need to understand your tax bracket. All of these things, that requires a constant state of analysis. Says the Chafetz Chaim, you are supposed to treat Torah and mitzvot like you treat a business. A business has opening hours, set times. You don't decide every day to open your store at a different time. How would the customers know when to come? How would you create any sort of routine? So too the Torah that a person studies, kavat ha'itim, there's set time, there's opening hours for your Torah. Many lessons that a person learns in the world of business are meant to be utilized in understanding how to relate to Torah. My friends, maybe that's one of the lessons that we're supposed to be taking here. That there are rivers that feed the Gan, that feed these trees that are in the Gan. And what are these waters sitting upon? Asher Shama Zahav. Learn from the way you treat your money. Let that feed your Etz HaChaim, your Etz HaDat, your trees. Let that feed your Torah. My friends, there's a guy I know who wrote an entire book on business principles which teach you concepts in Torah. But you know, this is not a new thing. It's already in the Gemara. The Gemara is teaching you. I remember learning this the first time. I didn't understand. The Gemara tells you, said the Chachamim, a person should take his money and diversify his portfolio. Did you know that? Portfolio diversification is talked about in the Talmud. Did you know that? A person should take shlish mamono, a third of his money, and put it into real estate. I'm not making this up. A third of the money you should take and put it into metaltalin, right? Things that you could buy and sell. Why is the Gemara telling you business advice? And the answer is because how you do anything is how you do everything. The idea of the way you invest in your money so that you're not putting all your eggs in one basket. I have some real estate boys in the corner that want you to invest all of your money in real estate. Oh wow, another one. How about this? Amazing. Okay. It's interesting that all the real estate people gravitated to one side. Maybe that's all the feng shui that you learn. You know, okay. Corners are more valuable. Just wanted to draw your attention to the extra form of egress. Okay, fine. My friends, the same way you are meant to learn lessons from Torah to your life, you're also meant to learn lessons from your life to Torah. Let me explain what that means. That sounds crazy. Why would you learn lessons from your life to Torah? That's nuts. The Torah is the source of all knowledge. And the answer is, of course the Torah is the source of all knowledge. The problem is not with the Torah. The problem is with us. The Torah will tell you about a river that sits with gold, and you have no idea what it's telling you. Until all of a sudden, you're in the middle of a business meeting, and you realize a principle, an idea. My rabbi used to say that the same way you learn a Gemara, you learn the sugya of life. God talks to every single person in this world through the Torah. Fascinating idea, but in fact we say it all the time in our tefillot. The HaKadosh Baruch Hu is milamed Torah le'amo Yisrael. You think you're studying Torah with me in breakfast in the class. It's not true. You're studying Torah with God. Not because I have an overinflated opinion of myself. I'm not saying I'm God. Has v'shalom. That would be Avodah Zarah. I'm saying that if a person is understanding, listening, learning Torah, that in that moment it is like God is sitting and teaching him the Torah that he gave to Am Yisrael. You have a chavruta with God. Fascinating. If you had a meeting with me, I hope you wouldn't be late. If you had a meeting with a chief rabbi, then you for sure wouldn't be late. Could you imagine you have a meeting with God when you're kovea itim and you don't turn up on time? You're keeping your chavruta waiting? Wild. He would never do that. You would never keep God waiting. So you.
Did he brief you before this morning's class?
No, he did not brief me. Did he keep a chavruta waiting? Oh gosh, okay. Baruch Hashem. You see, this person is a person who's learning up the sugya of life. My friends, God speaks to Am Yisrael through the Torah, but He also speaks to you and to me through your life. Did you know that? The nature of hashgacha pratit is not just that God does things with you or to you or for you because He wants to. Not because God, has nothing else to do, so He's going to decide, to arrange for a lack of or getting a parking space. That you should drive over a sharp object and have a flat tire. All the random things that happen in your life, they're not random at all. It's HaKadosh Baruch Hu talking to you. He's trying to get you to see something, to realize something, to notice something. That's what Hashgacha Pratit is about. It's not Hashgacha Pratit randomly. Even the Hashgacha is for a reason. What's that reason? For me to open my eyes. My friends, sometimes the Zahav teaches us about the wood, and sometimes the wood teaches us about the Zahav. If you ever felt this idea that I need to put aside money for later, ever felt that? I'm sure some of you have experienced this at some point. 401k, you want to make sure you're going to be okay for tomorrow. They say the Alter from Slobodka, he was a businessman. And one day, he saw his Rebbe, and he was on his way, and he said, "Where are you going?" And he says, "I gotta get to work." He says, "Why you gotta get to work?" He says, "What do you mean?" He says, "How am I gonna live?" So his Rebbe said to him, "Why is everyone so worried about how they're gonna live, and no one is worried about how they're gonna die?" You want to make sure that for later you have with what to live from. But we also, unlike other people that feel like the end of the game is when you pass away, for a Jew, that's not the end of the game. That's the beginning. Our world, our existence is very short. It's so short. Correct? Compared to the eternity of your neshama's existence, your time here is like not even a snap of your fingers. So let me share with you an example of this. The Chafetz Chaim was once visited by a wealthy man in his country. Guy comes to the house. Chafetz Chaim was famously frugal, which sounds like a fantastic name for someone who wants to start a blog or an Instagram account for how to save money. Famously frugal, TM. He didn't spend money on anything. You know why? Because every extra dollar he spent came at the expense of every extra minute that he would spend learning. Okay? He once came to his son's house, and he saw that there was wallpaper on the walls. And he said to his son, "I see that you have wallpapered your home with pages of Gemara." And the son said, "What are you talking about?" He says, "What do you mean? Every bit of that wallpaper you had to pay for. That pay had to come from you spending more time working. That working came from you having to spend less time learning. I see you wallpapered your house with pages of Gemara. He was famously free. It wasn't an important thing for him. Anyway, this wealthy guy comes to the house. He wants to see this great Talmid Chacham that everyone's talking about. You know, the chief rabbi of the world, according to many opinions, by the way. At that time, the Chafetz Chaim had the status of Rabban Shel Kol Yisrael, of the rabbi of the whole Jewish people. Right? According to many opinions. And you can't argue on him in halakha because he was the Mishnah Berurah. We have someone here right now, actually. They're in the middle of putting out all of the Mishnah Berurah in English, done properly, with notations, with examples, all different things. Rabbi over here, he just gave me 2 copies. I have to check it out upstairs, Be'ezrat Hashem. But he was very, very, very into it, right? Anyway, the guy comes to the house. He's expecting to see this, the grand court of the rabbi with all the people there, and the rabbi wearing a beautiful thing and a nice hat, I don't know. He comes in, he sees the Chafetz Chaim, who was a very small man, by the way, short. I don't know if you ever saw the little video. He's very short, small, tiny house, dirt floor, and he says, I don't understand. Where's the furniture? Where's the Chafetz Chaim says, I don't, this is what I have, The guy says, a person like you doesn't, I can't believe this is what your house looks like. In my house, it's beautiful, but you're the big rabbi. This is not appropriate. The Chafetz Chaim says, sir, you're asking me where my furniture is. Where's your furniture? I don't see your furniture. Guy looks at the rabbi like he fell on his head. He says, what do you mean, my furniture? He goes, I don't have my furniture because I traveled here. I don't live here. I'm just traveling. The rabbi looks at him and he smiles and says, me too. I don't live here. I'm just traveling. That's an example, my friends, of the Zahav feeding the wood. A mashal of life from your business, from from the office, from the way we invest, from the way we think about possessions, teaching us Torah. The Torah tells us, if you treated the Torah like gold, like pearls, like precious stones, right? Tovli Torat Picha. Great for me is the Torah. Me'alfei zahav v'chesef. What kind of comparison is that? Imagine you told your wife, honey, I love you more than I love money. First of all, your wife will be very impressed because she knows how much you love money. But is that something you would even begin to compare? You tell your children, listen, I like you more than dollars. Tovli Torat Picha me'alfei zahav v'chesef. The answer is, it shouldn't be a good example. But it is a good example. Every day, all day, if you're working, all day you're thinking about money. All day you're thinking about a deal, how to save, what can I do? Move the money into an S-corp, move the money over there. It's the offshore account. I don't know what you're going to do. You're trying everything to protect your money. You're thinking about how to have it more. What can I do? Hire someone else. Unbelievable. If you only thought that way, that much about your family, they'd probably have a little bit more of your attention. Tovli Torat Picha me'alfei zahav v'chesef. It's not a good example, but it's the best one we have. When Rabbi Yochanan was passing away, his students came to him and they asked him for a beracha, and he said, your fear of heaven should be like your fear of man. And they said, really? That's it? I should fear Hashem like I fear a person? He said, halavai. If only. You're right, it's a bad example, but it's the best one we have. A person doesn't sin if other people are watching. But Hashem's always watching. That means that you're more afraid of a human being than you are of God. That's an example of the Zahav feeding the Etz. So my friends, one of the things that's super important is to take the book off the shelf in the Beit Midrash, take the book that's sitting in front of you studying, and take the book and bring it into your day-to-day. The Torah has to be everywhere you are. Let me ask you, if we're obligated to learn, V'higita bo yomam v'alayla, you're supposed to study the Torah day and night. How do you make a living? I have to do other things. When do I do that? Now, if I'm blessed to be a Torah scholar that's studying Torah morning, noon, night, fantastic. But not everybody is. Not everybody can. And that pasuk was said to everyone, not just someone in Kolel. What does that mean? It means that when you go to work, you're not stopping to study Torah. When you're talking to your friend about how am I going to do this, and I have to get the money, and where are we giving the maaser to? That means that your entire day revolves around living life the right way. You're still studying Torah. You didn't stop. That, my friends, is when a person understands the interplay of these two things. The Aron has a living, breathing center. It has the Etz Hadat, the Etz HaChaim inside of it. It carries within it the Torah. But what covers it from the inside and the out? The day-to-day, the mundane things, the things that take up all this time in our life. My friends, the gold elevates the wood, and the wood elevates the gold. Take the Torah into every minute. Ask yourself, what Torah am I learning at work? What Torah am I learning in my relationship with my wife? What Torah am I learning in my relationship with my children? What Torah am I learning when I go to the gym? All of these things, my friends, are opportunities for growth, and we would be wise to not waste 1 second. Baruch Adonai Le'olam.